If you've never been to therapy before, or if you're starting fresh with someone new, I want to start by saying something simple. It's okay to not know what to expect. Most people show up to their first therapy appointment with a mix of feelings. Maybe some relief that they finally made the call. Maybe some nervousness about what's going to happen here. Maybe some awkwardness about the idea of sitting across from a complete stranger and talking about real stuff, personal stuff you may have never told anyone or said out loud before. What am I even supposed to say? Do I just start talking? What if I cry? What if I don't cry? What if I don't know where to begin? All that is completely normal. And actually, one of my favorite things someone can say when they sit down for the first time is, Dan, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do here. I love hearing that because it usually means they showed up without a performance prepared. And that genuinely is the best way to arrive. I'm Dan, a licensed marriage and family therapist with a PhD in couple and family therapy. Let me pull back the curtain and tell you what actually happens in a first therapy session. The first thing to know is it's more of a conversation than an examination. The first session has a clinical name. We call it the intake, which sounds more formal and medical than it usually feels. What it really is your therapist trying to understand who you are, what brought you in, what you're hoping to get out of the process. We do this through conversation, gradually, following the thread of what you share. Your therapist will ask a lot of questions. That's expected and really normal on intakes. They're trying to build that picture, not of what's wrong with you, but of who you are, who your supports are, who's in your life, and what's going on. It's like that outer edge of a puzzle when you sit down to make a puzzle. We want to know why you came in now, what's been happening, a bit of your history, what you've already tried to do to help, and what you're hoping might be different in the future. Your only job in that first session is to answer as honestly as you can. And you certainly don't have to have your story organized. You don't have to know your goal in some sort of clinical language. Saying something like, I just know something needs to change. That's good enough. I've heard that more times than I can count, and it's always enough to start. Sometimes people worry about this too. Am I going to have to immediately talk about the worst thing that happened to me? No, not if you're with a good therapist. A skilled therapist doesn't drag you in the deep end before you've had a chance to get comfortable with the water. They work slowly. They build trust first. The pacing follows your lead always. You decide in every single session how deep you want to go. A good therapist creates the conditions where going deeper feels possible over time because the safety is there first. They don't manufacture a breakthrough in session one. And I'd be a little suspicious of a first session that felt too cathartic too fast, honestly, because real work tends to deepen over time. It's not saying it can't happen that way, but that's usually how it's supposed to go. What you might feel when it's over. This part surprises a lot of people, so it's worth naming. After a first session, people feel all kinds of things. Some people feel a kind of good tired, like something that had been held tightly for a long time finally got set down for a few minutes. Some people feel genuine relief, like an exhale. Some feel a little raw or emotionally stirred up in ways they didn't expect. Some feel lighter. They can't explain why. And some people feel, honestly, not that much. And that's okay too. There's no right way to feel after your first session. The first session is mostly beginning. Two people starting to orient to each other. It's the first page, not the whole book. So don't evaluate the whole process based on how one session might have felt. Here's something I don't think clients realize. And I think it's actually kind of interesting to know. In a first session, I'm doing several things all at once that aren't maybe visible to you from your side of the room. I'm listening to what you're saying, of course, but I'm also paying attention to what you're not saying, what you approach and then maybe sidestep, what you light up talking about versus what you describe from a careful distance, what creates a subtle shift in your energy, body language when certain topics come up. I'm beginning to form early ideas, held loosely, about what might actually be at the root of what brought you in. No conclusions yet, but just some early curiosities and questions. I'm also paying attention to how it feels to be in the room with you. Not because it's about me, but because how a person tends to affect others is actually meaningful information about how they move through their relationships. And that's an example of one of the things an attachment-based therapist like myself pays attention to. And, if I'm being honest, I'm also paying attention to whether I think I'm the right therapist for you. Because not every client is the right fit for every therapist. I want to make sure I have what it takes to meet you with your needs, and to be a support for you in the ways that you deserve. A good therapist holds these questions openly, not defensively. First sessions also include some logistics. Consent forms, if you haven't done them already. Oftentimes they happen online prior. There's a review of confidentiality, what stays in the room, and what might legally or ethically need to be disclosed. There's also insurance and payment questions and information. Nothing exciting, but a good therapist doesn't rush through it so fast so you don't understand what you're actually agreeing to. So, what do you bring to a first session? Nothing. Just yourself. Maybe a loose sense of what's been weighing on you lately. No prepared speech is needed, no notes or organized backstory. You don't even need to be in crisis. It's not required to justify showing up. Come as you are. That is really the whole job. And one last thing. If you leave the first session wondering, is this the right person for me? I'd encourage you to give it 2 or 3 sessions before you decide. First sessions are more orienting, logistics even sometimes, and what follows. The relationship is still calibrating on both sides. So maybe give it a little room before you conclude. Hopefully, this gives you a clearer picture of what to expect. Thanks for watching.